Pre-COVID-19, in an average week, the unemployment system in Michigan would see 5,000 claims. Over 3 weeks, that's 15,000 claims. Think of it as this 12-ounce can of pop. And then this cup is the system that handles all those claims. It's well within its right and ability to handle that. If you pour it a little too much, it might overflow, but it's an issue that can be handled. Well, in the last 3 weeks of March, this is essentially how many claims they got. 54 times more than normal. And if we pour it into the exact same system, guess what happens? It makes a mess. And now I have wet shoes.
We understand.
Yeah, Courtney, the streets are now clear. Capitol Lawn is empty after thousands of protesters gridlocked the city for much of the morning and much of the afternoon, speaking out against the governor's stay-at-home order, but also making their disdain for Governor Gretchen Whitmer well known.
Shut Ford Motor Company down, then they shut my tree service down. So I went to fishing out on Lake Erie by myself in my own boat. They shut that down too. How far are they going to go?
Whether it be their jobs taken away or their pastimes, these protesters just want them back. Today, their cars locked down Lansing streets, loudly protesting the governor and her most recent stay-at-home executive order.
It's amazing. I'm glad people are finally standing up and voicing their opinion and making it known how we feel.
Many of these protesters work in fields like lawn care and construction for private companies, jobs deemed non-essential by the state and thus shut down.
We could have been out this morning salting sidewalks down Grand Rapids, but we can't. But they can let their own workers salt these sidewalks. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
There's double standards all over.
Whitmer was given the ability to enact this order when the GOP-led legislature approved an extension of the state of emergency last week.
I'm not going to get into a hypothetical game of what would we have done anything differently. What I'm doing right now is encourage the governor to adopt a more reasonable approach to COVID-19.
Whitmer can make changes when she deems necessary, but something will have to be decided upon by the end of the month when the order expires.
Everyone in our state is essential. We have to ask ourselves the question, what activities can be done safely?
Yes, the legislature is going to meet on April 30th to decide whether to extend the state of emergency here in Michigan, but that doesn't necessarily mean the stay-at-home order is going to be extended. It just gives the governor the ability to make that decision. Live in Lansing, Eric Lloyd, 9 and 10. Every level of the government wants to reopen the economy, and they all agree that you shouldn't probably jump into it. That would be like me taking this balcony and jumping to the ground. Sure, it would get me to the ground, but it wouldn't work out in the long run. And that's how the economy works. So people like Governor Gretchen Whitmer are unveiling plans to take steps to get out of this. And it depends on who you talk to on what steps should be taken. Talk to Speaker Chatfield. He says essential, non-essential must change to safe, unsafe. Then maybe the next step could be stay at home just for the vulnerable population. And then maybe we reopen restaurants and gyms, but keep the social distancing rules. And then possibly a little bit more normalcy. Large crowd venues can get back going, and the economy is at full bore. It's been just over 2 months since Governor Gretchen Whitmer put Michigan under the stay home, stay safe order. That came 2 weeks after the state of emergency, and since then things have just seemed to get more confusing.
Does this increased activity mean that COVID-19 is spreading or not? And that's what we need to measure before we take this next step.
Here's where some of the issue really started. March 10th. First 2 confirmed cases of coronavirus in the state of Michigan, Governor Whitmer immediately puts us under a state of emergency. That opened up funding and resources to throw at the problem, but it also gave the governor the power to enforce executive orders. Executive orders like the stay home, stay safe order, which she put forth on March 24th. This is where we started seeing businesses and sectors close down, essential versus non-essential workers. Face masks were mandated in public. This was the peak of the shutdown activity. But then as the state got better and the numbers improved and part of the economy started to reopen, it started to get confusing. Can I go out shopping or do I have to stay home? That's when she extended it on May 1st, she changed the branding to safer at home. A lot of people missed this key word, but she stresses, you don't have to stay home, you're just safer at home.
We are now in a position where we can start to think about and talk about and plan for this dialing up of re-engagement of our economy.
Then comes in the My Safe Start Plan, another buzz marketing title for the plan to reopen the state. Right now, Regions 6 and 8, the Upper Peninsula and what is known as the Traverse City region, are open for restaurants, retail shops, and business offices, with proper guidelines. The rest of the state is still waiting.
As this week goes on, we'll be able to share more about what we believe the next safe steps are to take.
Then there are the newest statewide announcements. Last week, Whitmer made gatherings up to 10 people safe once again, and on Tuesday the 26th, retail shops and auto dealerships across the state can reopen with strict limits. This Friday, the 29th, the same can be said for dental, medical, and veterinary procedures. In Lansing, Eric Lloyd, 9 and 10 News. About an hour after these new epidemic order changes came down, I was able to catch up with Governor Gretchen Whitmer here in Mount Pleasant at a volunteer turnout event and got to sit down with her and talk to her about the changes we are going to see across the Traverse City region and the state, especially asking her how she's able to do this, since many Michiganders think she lost her executive order powers when the Supreme Court ruled against her.
Ever since then, there's been confusion, and these epidemic orders have the power of the law. They are the law, and unfortunately, our COVID numbers are climbing, and that's why it's important to dial back now.
These orders from the state are allowed because they are technically not being done by Governor Whitmer, instead by the Department of Health and Human Services through epidemic orders based on health threats.
It's all relative. Our numbers are dramatically increasing, and it is taxing our healthcare systems, and we all pay a price if those get overrun.
Thursday, the state reported a record number of cases. Hospitalizations are up, positivity rates are up, and deaths are continuing to add up, higher than previous peaks.
We knew that the fall was going to be more dangerous because more people will be inside. However, the lack of a national strategy has contributed to numbers across our nation that are unlike anything anywhere else in the world.
Whitmer chalks it up to pandemic fatigue, but stresses this is the worst time for Michiganders to let their guard down, not until a vaccine is widely available.
The fact of the matter is COVID-19 doesn't care if we're tired of it. COVID-19 doesn't care about a Supreme Court decision. COVID-19 is still very real, and it's a still very real threat.
If you want to see the full interview from today, you can head to our website, 9and10news.com, where we'll have it posted for you. In Mount Pleasant, Eric Lloyd, 9 and 10 News.
I don't know if I processed 2020.
There's been a lot, so much that it's easy to forget the year started for Governor Gretchen Whitmer with her eyes set on road funding.
I'm proud, even though we haven't talked about the roads very much this year, that the orange barrels have been up and we've been making progress.
February came and the state was still on track. Whitmer was asked by the Democrats to give the official party response to the State of the Union address.
I wanted to make sure that Michigan was portrayed in a positive light. I didn't want to take any gratuitous swings at the president.
COVID-19 was spreading across the country, but it wasn't here until it was. The first 2 confirmed cases on primary day, March 10th.
Michigan was a little late to get COVID cases, but we heated up fast.
Within a week, restaurants, gyms, theaters, and other businesses closed down. A stay-at-home order soon after.
It really was important to move swiftly. Studies have shown that the actions we took saved thousands of lives.
As Michigan sought help, Whitmer took to those swings earlier, and we're now directing them at the White House.
It's also when I said there wasn't a national strategy, and I think that's when I got the president's ire and kind of changed the whole dynamic here on the ground. I stand by it. Here we are 10 months later, and I think that's still an accurate statement.
March, April, and into May, Michigan saw the spike, rode out the lockdown, and protest and pushback rose up. And then another major date, May 19th.
Yeah, that was really a tough day.
2 dams broke, several communities flooded, hundreds of homes submerged. A 500-year flood hits during a 100-year pandemic.
And we had to take action. Lives were depending on it. And we did it without the loss of life, which is pretty incredible.
As the floodwaters receded, so did COVID cases over the summer. The economy reopened and students went back to school. As we waited to see if the second COVID spike would hit in the fall, Whitmer was thrown into the spotlight again on October 8th. Arrests made in the plot to kidnap her.
I wasn't prepared for the incredible international interest in this story. So it's just kind of another piece of an already wild year.
The plot became a political football as the election came and went. And since Joe Biden's win on November 3rd, Michigan stayed in national headlines with claims of election fraud.
I think we should say false accusations of fraud, because there was no fraud in this election.
And at the same time, the second spike finally hit, even harder than the first.
It's unfortunate that our numbers got as bad as they were, but all of these things converging, right? The advent of flu season, the dropping of the temperature, us coming together, it was contributed to spread.
But as we limp through December, the cases have steadily dropped and the long-awaited vaccine arrived, showing a path out of the pandemic and into a new year.
The vaccine is safe and it is effective, and it is a key to getting back to some normalcy. And I think there's a lot of hope for 2021, and I'm excited.
In Lansing, Eric Lloyd, 9 and 10 News.